Good morning, everybody. Hey, it's your boy LB. So, this morning I wake up, I enjoy my day, that I have vision, I have gratitude in my heart that I'm able to move again today. I think even some of the thoughts I had were the blood fills my veins and I'm alive once again. But I did wake up early in the morning. If you're wondering what I'm trying to do right now, it's trying to get me a tangerine going. But I'm not planning on eating it during the video like I normally do. But we'll see how that all goes. So, I had a thought. Like I said, I woke up in the middle of the night. It's 3 a.m. Typical wake up in the middle. It's really because of what I eat at night. You know, if you depending on what types of foods you eat, you'll get like a certain amount of rest, and then you'll wake up some point mid sleep, and you'll be kind of stuck awake. Sometimes with thoughts, and it usually has to deal with sugars. So like last night we had like chocolate covered pretzels, and kind of like we didn't really eat the strongest of meals at the evening. And then there's another thing, I don't know. I haven't really said too much about the whole vegan versus carnivore thing. When you have a kid and you're dealing with society standards and just everyday life, this is contextual based. It's not always easy to adhere to what you think or believe is the best. But, and this is the test of willpower. Um, I'm planning on venturing toward a carnivore based diet for a week and to see how my body deals with just being off the sugars. Now, a lot of times, and especially with what I would suggest, is that you kind of have to ease into this. So, like, you reduce the carb loads just 1 to 2 days. You kind of need decreasing it percentage wise. Maybe you have berries and fruit for one day, and then you kind of transition to half of that amount of fruit for the day, or honey with it, and then eventually you don't have any, and then now you're kicking into doing the carnivore based. So I'm kind of in the middle of that. I want to get through some of the foods that I feel like would spoil during the process. It could be fruit that I want to get through first. Could be bread, carbs. There's some carb stuff. Like I want to get through some breads. But as far as I think today, I'm gonna cook some steak. So I am gonna transition. But here's the thing, meat doesn't do the best in the body when it has to compete with other stuff. So if it's like work, and here's the other thing too, a big issue that I've noticed is that people with their diet, whether it's like SIBO or stomach problems, this usually comes down to stomach acid. People's stomach acid, you got to figure out how to regenerate that. And a great indication is to look at your nail bed. So when I look at my nail bed, it's more smoother than it was, but which is kind of nice. That means my stomach acid, usually that's an indication that your stomach acid is low. So when you have little ridges that come across your nails, just take a look at them. That means you probably got low stomach acid, and I definitely don't have the best. But at least it's better than it was, because gosh, it was getting worse. I was like, what is happening to my nails? Like, is this just part of age? Like, yeah. As we get older, our stomach acid goes down. So it makes it harder to digest foods, especially steak, but more so the bugs. There's not enough stomach acid to destroy some of the bacteria or whatever you want to call it. The life forms that end up in our gut that crawl up through our small intestine and into our stomach. So something there. But anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night. That's a good one. And I had this quote, this statement or something. Well, it was my grandmother's. and I knew better what she was talking about. And I always had some questions or conflicts about it. But she's always said, like, I remember her when I was younger saying, every generation gets weaker and wiser, weaker and wiser. She said, every generation gets weaker and wiser. And I always believed her, but I didn't understand like why I believed her. I could never unwrap. Like I could say weaker and smarter. Maybe a generation learns more and then they're just not as equipped. But she said weaker and wiser. So what was coming down? What did this mean? And so I understood it a little bit better last night. And so I wrote down this quote. Well, basically her quote, and then I finished out what my thoughts were about it. Because here's the thing: when you're strong, when you're strengthened, when you have defense, and you're just a strong warrior spirit. And this is not to say that they're not wise. Okay, don't let me screw that up for anybody here. But I'm saying it's a different kind of wisdom. A lot of times in carrying this pride, it's not really a prideful position, but this strength-oriented position, it is a very rigid mindset that you have to adopt in order to preserve what you feel like you have to preserve as strength and power. And the interesting thing is that it removes all courage to be vulnerable. Now, I want you to understand what I just said. When you're strong and you're holding your defense, you also eliminate, limit, reduce completely the power or the courage to be vulnerable. And in being vulnerable, you are your most weakest. So what I'm trying to say in all of that is, every generation gets weaker and wiser. When you are wiser, you become more vulnerable in some ways. Meaning that your wisdom may teach you to let things go, to let things be, to let completely go any of your strength, because there's no, the glory is in the beyond. And you say, well, I have to safeguard all the people here. You buy into the story. You buy into this fabric almost too much, to the point you miss out on the greater wisdom that is trying to maintain life, trying to control your surroundings, your narrative. You miss that losing all of this, you obtain infinity. You obtain heaven. And that part of the process here is to suffer. Because in the suffering, you have wisdom. And in suffering, are you not weaker? Don't you have to be vulnerable to suffer? Is this power, control, does that mean that you're mitigating the level of suffering? This strength? Does strength equate to suffering? I don't think so. Not in my opinion. You may struggle, you may strive, you may try to get to a position and that encourage suffering to get to that strength and power position. But when there is no suffering to be had, there is probably very little wisdom to come with that. So I offer you kind of an explanation to my grandmother's quote, that in every generation gets weaker and wiser. But how we become weak is through vulnerability to allow suffering. And in that, we become wiser and we learn. And we understand our brother and sister a lot better. Our brethren. So that's all I had to share today. That's all I wanted to share. And I will continue on with the rest of my day and eat my tangerine. Start maybe my day with some ginkgo biloba. We'll see how that functions. But you guys have a great Monday. And I will journey on and see you on the next video. Peace.